Thank you, Konstantin. So as you already heard, it's my task now to steer you from your afternoon nap. And I'll do so by using a technique we already heard, introducing a physical game. And we'll do that about in the middle of the presentation. So be aware when it happens. So my name is Tilo Schwarz. I'm a management trainer and Kata coach, focusing on how we can make continuous improvement and innovation our core competitive advantage. So prior to being that, I was a plant manager for Festool, managing the German plant. And my management team there and I introduced and started practicing the Toyota Kata in 2008. And by doing so, we stepwise managed to make continuous improvement a common part of the daily work throughout the whole plant. So why did I focus on that? Well, I focused on this as a plant manager because I believe that enabling a culture of continuous improvement and innovation is the core, crucial advantage we need to survive today and especially tomorrow in organizations. So, how did I come to believe that? Well, let me ask you a question. How do you experience the world? Is it getting more stable or more volatile? And how about your business? And even your personal work, getting more stable over the years or getting more volatile? So I recall one of my employees at Festool asking me, well, Tilo, tell me, when is this going to stop that things keep constantly changing? Well, it's not going to stop. It's going to increase. Oh, wow, that's frightening, isn't it? Well, it's not if we learn, first of all, how to cope with it, and even better, how to draw advantages from that. So how can we do that? There's just one way. In volatile conditions and unpredictable surroundings, we have to be quickly adaptive and constantly innovative. So, and therefore, management must focus on increasing this ability to adapt and constantly innovate, and finally, enable a culture of continuous improvement. So how do we do that? Well, first of all, let's make one thing clear. We cannot create or make a culture, because culture is an outcome. So then, what do? Well, we have to focus on behaviors. Here's an example. If I come here today with a shirt and a scarf from my favorite soccer team and some colorful painting on my face, you would have been kind of bewildered, wouldn't you? Well, if I do the same, exactly the same, on Saturday in the stadium, I hardly even stick out. So what makes the difference? In the stadium, there is a common behavior amongst all the individuals that are present. So let's understand culture in the following way. Culture is the sum of common behaviors within a group of individuals. So this is what you can see here. So if we want to change this, we first of all have to understand which behaviors do we have today that need to be changed, and which are our desired behaviors we want established in the organization. So, and by the way, this is why most of cultural journeys and empowerment programs don't work. Because first of all, they don't analyze which are the behaviors we have today, and they don't describe exactly which are the behaviors we desire for tomorrow. They just make a lot of wind. So what do we have to do? Well, we have to precisely describe the desired behaviors we want, code them into behavior patterns, and then train them consistently and persistently until they become a habit. So how can we do that? Well, the question is, what actually influences behaviors and behavior patterns in an organization? And there's just one answer, and it's management patterns. So how is that? Let's make a little test about that. If you can move back a little bit on your chairs from your table so that you can swing your right leg Counterclockwise, please. Counterclockwise. Circle it counterclockwise. Like that. Well, you can do it seated. I have to do it standing, so it's a little bit harder for me. So counterclockwise. Keep doing it. So this is one of the team members working in the factory, right? Just circle, circle. And here comes the manager. Take your right hand up in the air. Keep circling. And please draw a 3. What happened to your leg? Starts turning around the other way, right? But don't worry, I didn't mess up your leg. If you write a 6 into the air, it goes back the other way. So now imagine, management comes and today says 3, tomorrow 6. What will happen to the team? This. Or imagine, middle management says 3. Top management says 23. What will happen? Go like this. So what we need is, we need corresponding management patterns, corresponding to the desired behavior patterns, and we have to consistently practice them on all levels. And this will enable us that desired behavior patterns finally become a habit. But there's a danger. We cannot implement thousands of behavior patterns. So we have to really be watching what we do there. So what we do is we decide which are the crucial and vital behaviors, practice them as management patterns, and this will, day by day, stepwise, change the habits in the organization and finally enable a different culture. So the question is, how do we do that? Well, first of all, we have to decide which are the vital behaviors, because we cannot train thousands of them. It's like in public transport and traffic. We don't teach our kids all the rules and regulations. We just train them the vital ones. That doesn't mean all the regulations are not useful. You can just not remember and train them. So for example, what do we train our kids as a vital behavior for walking through public traffic? Well, for example, one vital behavior is, how do you cross a street? Focus on vital behaviors. And how do you train vital behaviors? Well, you have to reduce them into a simple routine. So what's the routine for crossing the street? At least here in Germany. Look left, right, left. Okay? This is the training routine. So the second step after identifying your vital behaviors is you have to code them into a training routine. Reduce them to an easy-to-train set of steps. And this is what we call a kata. So you code the desired behaviors into a kata. So here's my recipe, how to enable cultural change. Step 1, identify the existing common behaviors that need to be changed. Secondly, describe the desired vital behaviors precisely and code them into a kata. And then establish the correspondent management patterns to turn the vital behaviors into habits. Of course, now the question arises, what are the vital behaviors for enabling a culture of continuous improvement and innovation? Well, to find more about that, and in the research, I came up with a mathematical formula, which I call the formula of success, which shows us in a simple mathematical formula what we have to work on. And this formula looks like that. Success equals D multiplied A multiplied M. This is a formula going back in parts to Mr. Horikiri of Toyota Engineering Worldwide. And D stands for direction, A stands for ability, and M for motivation. So for example, take a third league soccer team. Their direction, wow, become world champions. Their motivation, go for it, chaka. But no ability, won't work, right? Or take a first league soccer team. The owner at the beginning of the season gives out the direction. This time we'll win the title. Obviously, they've got a lot of ability, right? They've got experienced and well-trained players. But unfortunately, each of them is either not motivated or they have totally different motivation. Won't work, right? So the three things we need to focus on is, from a management perspective, give direction, increase problem-solving ability, and enable self-motivation. So now let's go a step deeper and understand how we can code these into a kata. And let's start with the first, giving direction. So the question is, why is it so important to give direction? And the answer is because standards are not enough. So let me explain that. In the Western understanding of lean, we've focused a lot on setting and controlling standards. Unfortunately, I believe this is a misunderstanding, and here's why. Because if you set a standard and then control it, what are you actually waiting for? You're waiting for the process to fall back. And once it falls back, you bring it back to the condition it had before, right? So this is very similar to stepping on a scale after Christmas. Whoa, too heavy. So what do? Go on a diet until, well, you've reached your normal weight again. So how long does that last? Till Easter. Not till next Christmas. At best, till next Easter. Yeah? So this means setting and controlling standards at best keeps the status quo. And by the way, I believe this is how most companies get shop floor management wrong, because they're just reacting on deviations. And then they jump from deviation to deviation and just bring it back to normal. So how do professionals do that? Well, professionals, for example, in sport, continuously improve. Why? Because they're always setting out for a challenge they cannot yet achieve. They always have a challenge in front of them, not a standard behind them. So having a challenge and creating an improvement pool is crucial to enabling a culture of continuous improvement. Or in other words, professionals always strive for a challenge. Amateurs react only on deviation and therefore fall behind. So let's see how we can code this into a Kata and do it. Well, does that mean just everybody pick a challenge? Well, not really, because then you would have everybody heading off in a different direction. So what we need here is what I call we need to install the challenge generator. And the challenge generator, as any generator, consists of two parts. First of all, there is a constant magnet in a generator. And secondly, there is a revolving, rotating part within the generator. So first of all, what you need to install is the magnet. So what you install is a constant vision, challenging for the processes, inspiring for the people, that creates that pull. And then comes the revolving part. You install a process that cyclically breaks this challenge down, this vision down into challenges about every 3 to 6 months. So vital behavior number 1 is create constant improvement pull with the challenge generator. So now once we've set that challenge, secondly, we need to increase the ability to reach that challenge, to solve the problem. Because otherwise people will just say, well, nice challenge, but impossible. So how do we do that? And that leads us to our second vital behavior, and let's code that into a Kata as well. Imagine a situation where you aspire to climb a mountain, and I mean a real mountain, not the mountain you can hike on the weekend, a mountain that really needs an expedition for several weeks. So there's a clear challenge you're aspiring to meet. So what are the steps in managing this challenge? And I believe there's 4. So the first step you would do will be the following. You will understand the challenge and break it down. Or I call this understand and slice the elephant. So but beware at that point, because setting the next target condition, of course, you have to understand the initial situation first. So it's not just a mathematical breakdown of the mathematical targets you have in your organization. So once you've done that, and you're ready to take the first step on your expedition, what are you going to do? The next step will be, well, you will exactly grasp the current situation yourself. Not somebody else, yourself. I call it go and see. And then, well, once you've understand that, you dig deeper into the next obstacle. So what do? You focus and analyze, and then, after you've understood the root cause, you make the step, validate immediately by experiment. And we already heard the concept of minimum viable product, which is very similar to what we see here. So, and then, once you've done the first step, well, you keep on going, repeating step 2, 3, and 4 until you reach your target condition. And then, again, you set out for setting the next target condition. So, vital behavior 2 is increase problem-solving ability with the improvement kata, how to master the challenge. So, well, pretty trivial, you could say. That's basic problem-solving knowledge. So why do I believe this is so important? 2 reasons. First of all, in most of the organizations, we are trained to act differently. And secondly, even worse, our brain is wired differently. What do I mean? When trying to master challenges, we are always moving beyond our current knowledge. We are moving out of our known zone into the unknown. Unfortunately, at the point where our current know-how ends, we need to change the way we work, our method. Why is that? Because on the left side, we have experience, so making a plan is successful. On the right side, obviously, we don't know, so we have no experience, so we can't plan. What does that mean exactly? Well, planning means on the left side, you do a plan. Why do you do a plan? Of course, to avoid obstacles. That's what we're trained for. And unfortunately, we're not just trained for, we're also brained for that. Because whenever we move into the unknown, our brain tries to find, from our experience, something that's similar so we can make a plan again. But this is the totally wrong method on the right side if we don't know, because on the right side, we don't need to avoid obstacles, we have to find the obstacles. Because the obstacles are these points that are hindering us from making things work. So we have to be root cause oriented. So the problem is we are trained and brained for quick countermeasures where actually we would need deeper analysis. So and this is why we need a kata to train that. Or in other words, firefighting behavior is good for quickly extinguishing fires, but not for preventing fires. Question to consider, which behavior does management foster in your organization? So now, let's move on to the third, the motivational part. How can we enable self-motivation? Well, there are 3 preconditions for people to be self-motivated. And they are, people have to be able to do it, people have to want to do it, and people have to be allowed to do it. So these are the 3 preconditions we have to fulfill that people are self-motivated. Let's start with the first. How can we enable people to crack the challenge? Well, we already heard, you just train them the improvement kata, right? Yeah, we'll do some offline training. Well, we know, and we heard that is actually why games are so important, people only learn 10% from offline training. They learn 20% from observing others, and 70% by doing it themselves on the job. So this is reason number 1. We have to train on the job. Secondly, if in our offline training we train a method A and people are really enthusiastic about using that and they come back and the management says, well, we know what you learned in the training, but we do B, then you just wasted the money for the training. So, and this is where the corresponding management pattern comes into place. So what we need here is, if we want the improvement kata for enabling people, we have to establish a corresponding management pattern to train this on the job. So now, question is, what is a management pattern? To understand that, personal question to you. Who of you did not brush his or her teeth this morning? Well, that's a surprise. Well, obviously, brushing your teeth is a routine, right? And it's a routine you weren't born with, so you somehow learned it. And you transformed it into a habit, because I believe there's nearly no day you don't do this routine in the morning, right? So why is that? Because there was a management pattern applied to you in your early youth by some managers you had there, and that they really did a very well job. So this routine became a habit. So what did they do? They kept asking you what? Did you brush your teeth, right? So management patterns are questions that enforce a certain method to be conducted. They are not asking for results, right? Are your teeth clean? Yes, of course, they're clean. They don't ask for solutions. Well, do you know any way to get your teeth clean? No, they ask precisely for a method to be conducted. Have you brushed your teeth? So what we need in order to implement the improvement kata and train the improvement kata on the job is a question pattern that trains the improvement kata. And now that's a little bit weird. It not just changes, a management pattern not just changes the way we act, it also changes the way we feel and think. I'll prove it to you. You can do the following experiment. Tonight, don't brush your teeth. Tomorrow, don't brush your teeth. Don't worry, nothing will happen. And then write me an email how you feel. How will you feel? Just imagine it for a moment. You'll feel bad, right? But there's no real consequence, but you feel bad. And this feeling is not a feeling you've been born with, because we've all been born without teeth, right? So there was no way of us being born with that feeling. So obviously, this management pattern, did you brush your teeth, not just created a habit, it created a way of thinking and feeling. We feel unclean if we don't brush our teeth in the morning. Wow, that's powerful. A little bit creepy, huh? Isn't it? So, if we want to train the improvement kata on the job, what is the question pattern that we need to apply to train this? And most of you probably already know. It's what we call the coaching kata. I just want to show you how this works together. So, number one, improvement kata. Step one, methodological step is understand and slice the elephant. So what must be the first question? Well, easy. What's your target condition, right? Second, go and see. Well, what's your actual condition now? 3, focus and analyze. Well, pretty easy. What obstacle are you preventing from reaching the target condition? And focus on one. And then 4, go and validate. Of course, what is there for your next step? What do you expect? Scientific experiment. And when can we go and see what we've learned from taking that step? See, this is how it goes together, and this is why we call this the coaching kata. It's the corresponding management kata to train the improvement kata on the job. So that was making people able to do it. Let's go to the second. People have to want to do it to be self-motivated. And here's another thing we need to understand clearly. We cannot make people want things. But there's one precondition we have to fulfill. Improvement has to have priority for people to want to do it. So in other words, if we want continuous improvement towards the challenge, we have to make sure it has priority. Explanation? Okay. Question, how do we manage in a crisis situation? Answer, insist on getting a daily status report. Translation, if something is really important, management asks for it on a daily basis. Correct? So that means if improvement does not match the priority of a crisis situation, it will not happen and we'll soon have a crisis, right? So that means it's not just about applying the coaching kata, it's about daily applying the coaching kata, because this gives the challenges priority. And in closing, let's move to the last point. People being allowed to do it. Just if they're allowed to do it, they're self-motivated. So what does that mean? It means beware. It's mainly about how we apply the coaching kata. So if we just say people get control, we teach them the method, they can find their way, but don't really mean it. That's like with that little boy. You sit your team members on your lap, give them the impression they can steer the car, but you still hold tight on the steering wheel. It's not going to work. So if you want a self-driven, continuous improvement process, you have to truly give control. And I believe this is one of the major changes that needs to happen in management if we really want this. Because if you don't really mean it, people will recognize soon and stop. So let's summarize. What are the 3 vital behaviors for making improvement part of your DNA? Here's number 1. Give direction, create constant improvement pull. What's the Kata for it? Install the challenge generator, and here's the trigger, run it at the end of each business quarter. Second, increase problem-solving ability. What's the Kata for it? Always use the improvement Kata when working on a problem. And third, enable self-motivation. This means set priority, train everybody, truly give control. What's the Kata? Daily coach people's work on challenges with the coaching Kata on all levels. So let me close with my favorite comment. What we need is leadership that plants orange trees, not management that quenches the last bit of juice out of oranges that already have been picked. So become leaders, apply the Katas, and enable a culture of continuous improvement. Thank you very much.
So thank you, Tilo, for that inspiring talk. I think there are a lot of questions, so now it's a good time to ask them. Janine here? The guy, second row from the back.
Not you?
You raised the hand, so no, you have to ask a question. Yeah, you're from Turkey, so have you heard of that concept in Turkey already? Yeah. Sure. Does this
we are going to implement Toyota Kata soon.
So
believe what Mike Rotter has written. So we found such a great followers in Europe, and we are very surprised how much that his thought is really went into Europe. That's why we are very grateful. Thank you very much, Konstantin.
Okay, yeah, you're welcome. So take care. Don't try to scratch your head because I will ask you to ask a question. Janus has a question here.
Until then, a very important question here on this side. Here.
Yeah, okay, this one. Yeah.
Are we going to get the slides?
Oh, pardon me?
A very important question. Are we getting the slides of the presenters?
Yeah, good question and important question. Sorry for not mentioning that before. You get all slides as PDF of all presentations, and we will send you a link to these slides after the conference, so you don't have to make pictures of the slides or take notes. You get all these presentations, and you get all links to the videos we taped of the presentation. So we have a complete documentation and will be available to the public as well. The only thing is that tomorrow we have 3 sessions in parallel, and we will only tape session 1 and session 4, because this would be too much effort to videotape 3 sessions in parallel. But you get the slides of all sessions anyway. So thanks for that question.
There's
now,
a question back there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question. You started your presentation with that the world is changing, that the variations increase, nothing stays the same. There's a kind of discussion between lean and continuous improvement and innovation. So if we don't know the future that sure, then it's difficult to have a target condition. We have to change the target condition, continuously. And if we improve, if we get standards and we improve, we need to change the standards continuously. So what is your opinion between the discrepancy, the link between lean and innovation?
Well, I don't understand what you mean by the discrepancy. When the world is changing, so yes. we need to change markets. We need the competition is changing. Sometimes
costs are important, that price is important, and
Yes.
new technologies come, and we have to use additive manufacturing, etc. So there are a lot of challenges
Right.
coming.
Absolutely.
So that means we have not a continuous improvement, but we have disruptive improvements.
Yeah, that's true.
And
Yeah.
so what's the link between, because we will have more and more disruptive improvements.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Does the Toyota Kata help to implement these disruptive improvements?
Yeah. Well, I think there's two questions in your question, actually. One is, what's the distance of the target condition? And yes, we can't set out a target condition for a long, long time because obviously things will change. Yeah. So what we see here with the target conditions, they're quite close. So secondly, I think a good answer is we have to be reminded of what the improvement kata sets out to enable us to do. It sets out to enable us to learn. So that means we can quickly learn what the current condition is, but also how things are interacting with reality. So what that means is, as long as we're striving for one target condition, this helps us to be focused on this target condition. But what we often realize is, on the way to our first target condition, here in that picture, we already learn where the second one should be. And that might be a little bit in a different angle. That can be. So I think the most important skill is to learn and to validate. And that is something which is true for innovation as well as for improvement. And I think this is how the improvement kata can help us in volatile conditions.
Okay. First Timo here. And then you.
Sorry, I actually don't have a question. I have an invitation. This is a very interesting topic, and I've been thinking a lot about it and doing some experimentation, and I would definitely like to discuss it in the evening over a beer if it's okay with you and anyone else interested.
Yeah, perfect. That's what we're trying to foster. So sit together or stand together in the break this evening and discuss that subject. Thank you. And last question.
You're talking about challenges. So the picture you have of human being, I assume, is about competition. So what is if you have a worker or operator who just wants to do his job as he knows to do it, will you fire him?
No, I think there's a difference between competition and challenge. My perspective of challenge is not a picture of competition, but goes back to something that Gerald Hüther, a brain researcher in Germany, has said. He says there's two core motives in people that you can't extinguish. So that they're always there because we're born with that. And one is the desire to belong to something, to a group, and feel loved. And the other is the desire to grow, to learn. So this is what I'm thinking about. So actually, everybody has the desire to belong to something and to grow and to learn. The sad thing is, we have somehow disrupted that from our daily life at work. And this is why we find so many people in the business world, in their workplace, which are not, we say from the outside, motivated. But if you ask them what they do privately, wow, they're really setting out for challenges, belonging to a club, something, and really go for it. So this is what I'm thinking about. So what we can do, I mean, of course, in an organization, we're in a group. It's not that everybody can pick his or her own challenge. But my perspective of true leadership is that we can get these two things a little bit closer together, which means satisfying deep human desires to belong and to grow in the workplace. We won't probably get a 100% match, but the task for leadership is get it a little more even again.
Okay, thank you, Tilo. Well, Mike, is an important question? Okay, just wait for the microphone, please.
And my apologies to Ralf Kriechbaum, wir sind schon in deiner Zeit. Just a real quick comment in 90 seconds. There's a lot of kata in the agenda today. It's a surprise to me. I did not set the agenda for this event. And I just want to encourage you to maybe look beyond that word and those discussions. And there seem to be two things that are related to that. One is there's a scientific pattern, there's a scientific approach, there's a scientific way of working. That's part of what's being talked about. That's part of what Tilo's talking about. And the other part that Tilo talked about really well, I thought, is the idea that we learn through practice, we learn experientially, which some of the other presenters, of course, have already talked about. You talked about generating habits. So I think there's a real power in those two areas, a scientific approach and the fact that we can acquire new ways of thinking and new skills through deliberate practice, or how do we acquire habits, the whole brain conversation. And I'd just like to encourage you to concentrate more on those things and don't get hung up on the Kata word. It's being mentioned a lot here today, and it is just a word that tries to describe something. Think more about what it's trying to describe. And maybe you have a different word or a different approach. And I think that's the importance of having the educators here, that you go home and you think about how can we teach scientific thinking in a more experiential way in our university, and then come back next year and tell us what you did. So again, please don't get hung up on the word. I apologize, Ralf Kriechbaum, wherever you are, for cutting into your time.
And anyway, good point. Come back next year. Okay,
right.
Tilo, thank you very much.
You're welcome.